'cause you're dead. So don't go higher.
Well, always honest and not always pretty, Toronto's Female Eye Film Festival just wrapped up its 15th year presenting films directed by women that tackle subject matter not often found in mainstream cinema. Joining us today is filmmaker, festival founder, and executive director Leslie Ann Coles. Welcome to What She Said.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So 15 years, that's a big accomplishment.
It's a long time. And I felt it this year, I'll tell you.
So what made you want to start it?
Well, I was hitting the festival circuit with my independent 40-minute film in 2001, and I noted there weren't a lot of women at the International Independent Film Festival. So it raised a question for me, and that was, are there so few women directors, or are their films not getting programmed? So we launched an event, myself and Norma Hoy in Toronto. We showed 42 films over the course of 3 days, and if someone had told me then that this would have become an International Women Directors Film Festival and I'd be doing this 15 years later, I would have laughed at them and said, I know nothing about that.
Yeah, you say this year you received a record number of narrative features from around the world.
That was really exciting. So we programmed more feature films this year than in any other year of the Female Eye, which meant that the short film programs in the documentary category suffered a bit of a hit. So we didn't program as many docs or as many short films, but it was really exciting to see feature narrative films coming to us from all over the world.
What were some of the themes in the films presented this year, and were they different in any way from the past?
Well, I think, I find that women in general, directors tend to write their films, and often they feature a female protagonist. So with films directed by women, typically you don't see, a 21-year-old woman on the arm of a 64-year-old man. You see women in lead roles. You see them in complex characters. They're not kind of one-dimensional or stereotypical. So we had a number of films. We had one film that dealt with the burning times in Finland. And so it was a period piece, Devil's Bride, by Sarah Cantel, and it won Best Foreign Feature Film at the Female Eye this year. It was stunning. Quite a remarkable film. We had a film from South Africa, Kreuzo, which dealt with the apartheid situation from a dramatic perspective, and it was quite stunning. And women, again, were at the helm of that film, the female characters. We had films that dealt with sex trafficking, both in documentary as well as in narrative. And we opened with a Canadian film, Hunting Pignut, by Martine Blue out of Nova Scotia, which won Best Canadian Feature. And our protagonist was a young woman who had lost her father, and she didn't know him from the age of 5, so she went on a quest. And his nickname was Pignut. So she went on a quest in search of her father. And it was a terrific film.
So what was the biggest highlight for you this year?
I think the biggest highlight for me was having so many feature films and having the directors come in. I mean, they did last year as well, but this year they came in from Hong Kong, they came in from Germany, from Australia, from across North America. So we had a great number of filmmakers actually come out to the film festival, which is pretty incredible considering we can't really comp their flights as a not-for-profit organization. So they're doing it on their own dime.
Well, there was even a special screening of your film called Melody Makers, which was an award-winning documentary that captures the rise of music journalism in the early 1960s. Tell us about that.
Well, that film was a long time coming. It took me about 8 years to finish Melody Makers.
Really?
Yeah,
8 years?
Yeah. So it features a photographer who now lives in Toronto. His name is Barry Wenzel. And I met him in 1996, and he shot for a seminal magazine out of the UK called Melody Maker magazine from 1965 until 1975. So he has like 250,000 iconic black and white images of every single artist who came up during the 60s and 70s, from the Beatles right to, Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, the band, everyone. And so it was really exciting to actually finish that documentary. I turned the camera on him in about 2008. And it was intended to be a limited doc series about music and music photographers of different genres. And I just decided to finish it as a feature documentary.
So at this year's Cannes Film Festival, Jessica Chastain talked about the lack of quality female representation in films this year, saying it was quite disturbing, I believe was her quote. From your point of view, in your opinion, what changes do you think need to be and can be made in the industry?
I think that we need to see more money going to women directors. And there's been some big initiatives in Canada, and there's been a lot of people talking about this. And we hold a roundtable discussion every year, and we discuss the status of women filmmakers around the world. And what seems to be lacking is funding. So we still haven't broken through the glass ceiling. Women are still challenged financially. So they're not giving the big budgets to women directors still. They're not. Women are still falling into kind of the low budget, that kind of category for funding. So we're still challenged in that regard. That's not to say that women aren't making films. It's easier now with the advent of digital filmmaking, but that's certainly a challenge. And we find that often they'll shine the light on a woman director, like Catherine Bigelow, who won for The Hurt Locker, and then they'll quickly dim those lights. And this we've seen time and time again. It's interesting as well, Superwomen, which is fantastic, and we have a woman director at the helm, that she hasn't been signed to another picture. I mean, if that was a man and that was having that kind of box office success, right? You'd think he'd already be signed to at least 2 more pictures.
But when you look at some of the heavy hitters, women that are starting to sort of branch out, like Reese Witherspoon doing that series and saying, no, I'm going to, and it was really sort of centered around women primarily. Do you think that helps?
I think it helps tremendously because I think, going back to my earlier statement, I think women like to see their reality projected on the screen. Women consume film, we watch television, but often we don't see ourselves reflected on the screen, and certainly young women don't. So Gina Davis's Institute is all about that. The Gina Davis Institute brought to light the fact that something outrageous, like 90% of women under the age of 19 either appear scantily clad or they're making a comment about a boy or responding to a boy within the context of film. So it's the way women are actually written in to film and television that's also challenging. So yeah, brilliant.
So where can people learn more about the film festival?
Well, they can go to our website, FemaleEyeFilmFestival.com, and look at what we're doing, look at our mission and mandate, where we started, our history, our programs. We also do things outside of the festival, so I'm curating a lot of programs internationally. So the Flying Broom in Turkey, I curated a Canadian short film program for them. We just received a grant from the Status of Women in Canada, funneled through the Ontario Arts Council. We've produced 46 short films to date involving young women at risk. So we basically teach them how to operate a camera. They shoot a short film. We premiere it at the Female Eye Film Festival. So in October, we're going to Sault Ste. Marie to work with young Aboriginal women from 4 reserves who attend a high school there, a vocational school, and we're going to shoot film.
Definitely stories that need to be told from that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And the theme is to stop violence against Aboriginal women in Canada. So this project will be disseminated province-wide across Ontario.
Sounds amazing. Well, Leslie Ann Coles, thank you so much for all you do, and congratulations on another year, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is What She Said. Stay with us.